Daredevil wants to do what's right within the system, and Punisher says the system's broken. I want to do what's right too, but I want to do it on outside of the system, and that's where the conflict lies between them. But honestly, and we see this a lot in the conservative movement, because we get a lot of infighting because of the way we want to do things, or whether we're conservative enough, or whether we're, whatever it is. There's a ton of that going on. But at the end of the day, we do need to, like Daredevil and Punisher, work together to stop the real tyranny out there. And we need to realize that, because if we don't wise up and start doing that a lot of the time, we're just gonna be standing alone. We're gonna get crushed. There's a lot of truth to that.
And by the way, I just want the people who know me will know that we're talking metaphorically here. Neither John or I are advocating for Daredevil or Punisher type tactics.
I was going to put on a spandex costume myself, but I gained 10 pounds over the Christmas break. I don't know. I won't look very good in it. Yeah.
Do not put on your jacket.
Oh no, you're doing too many inside jokes that your viewership doesn't know about already.
Well, see, but this will drive them to your channel to figure it out. So, not that you need my help; you're already growing. So, but I think you nailed something there too, in that the conservative movement is. I'm far more in the camp of paleo conservatism. I'm not a reactionary conservative. I'm not a Fox News conservative. I watched Fox News probably for the first time. I don't even know in how long, honestly, when Josh was on there the other night.
I cut cable completely about 2 years ago when the BLM stuff was going down. Just not paying these people. That's it. So,
but the conservative movement is really kind of in a conundrum right now, because there's these quintessential things that it means or meant to be a conservative in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an unabashed backing of law enforcement at all costs, all the time.
That doesn't work out, it turns out, a lot of the time. Yes.
Especially for conservatives.
Yes.
And because we're seeing that within the law enforcement leadership, especially, most of the law enforcement leadership is, checking the.
You find that with the military too. You talk to the rank and file Marines, the boots on the ground there. They don't agree with a lot of stuff that's being done, but they do have a sense of patriotism and nationalism, to the point where they're just like, well, I got to do my job. It's the right thing to do. When push comes to shove, it'll be the right thing. And that's kind of where the rank and file are at. And it's at a big disconnect from the people in the Pentagon and all that, who are really pushing just some terrible stuff. They really are.
Which kind of brings me to what the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is, you do comics. So you go from writing science fiction and writing novels to now you're doing graphic novels and comics. And you're bold in what you're doing. It's not a subtle hint at your. I mean, and I have to be honest, I haven't bought anything yet, but just listening to you, I could just tell that your stuff's not subtle. It isn't like, oh, here's your traditional person in this world, and they're just going to very subtly go about doing.
No,
this thing.
I straight up made it's literally a crusader who's moving into this realm and going to slay demons. So I say I've got a strong Catholic male lead, something that you're not allowed to publish anymore, pretty much.
Oh, hey, wait a minute. Are you Roman Catholic?
I am, yes. Yeah.
This is the second Roman Catholic I've had on now in the last couple of months. My channel is going to burn up. It's just going to catch on fire. I'm a Protestant, Calvinistic, Reformed Baptist. So
I'm sorry about that.
No. Yes. Well, we can't all be right like me. So, but your work is entertaining. It's got a fantasy feel to it. It's kind of a science fiction feel to it, and but it's communicating something, and you're bold about that. You want people to see this message. You want people to embrace it.
I would say that it's very clear in the themes, what's going on. The character, of course, is he's on a literal crusade, and this takes place in 1099 AD, where he's going out to go do that. So it informs his character. What I don't do, and where I've learned the lesson of what the mainstream media does, is they pause their stories like in the middle of things. I was reading a comic book, The Fantastic Four, which is supposed to be a science fiction wild thing. It stops the story in the middle of an issue, like, and this is from 2016, 2017. And I was looking it over the other day. An alien kid shows up. He walks in the room, and he goes, "All right. Well, I was feeling like a boy yesterday, but I feel like a girl today. So I'm going to be called Sister now." This is literally the dialogue. There's no action going on. It's just it's a little green alien who then puts on a dress, and they stop a whole page for that. And then all of them hug the little person and call it Sister now, and then say, "You're family. We're all family." Well, I don't do that in my book. I don't, I just have fun with it, and we're going on cool adventures. So I've learned like not to be cringe about it, I guess is the best way to say things. But I do put the values in there. I definitely don't want to copy anything the mainstream industry does from the way they storytell, which I think is awful to their ideals. Yeah.
Horrible.
I mean, I can't believe that's real. It's like, can you imagine handing that to a kid these days? Jeez.
Sadly, I wish I could say, no, I can't imagine it, but
somebody at your public library is doing that and handing that to your kid right now.
And I don't even have to imagine it. I'm like, I live in a town of 2,600 people. It's happening at my library. I can guarantee it. And actually, I've been invited to a premiere of a documentary put out by a Child Protection League here towards the end of the month, and like they're all over this stuff. They're just so bold about handing out, which is what really impressed me about your stuff and listening to you talk about it. Like, no, here's our values. Here's what we believe. Here's why we believe it. Here's why it's right. And I'm going to write about it. I'm going to include this in the storyline. Who does your sketching and your ink? You do all of that?
No, I can't draw at all. So I came from a writer. I've written 16 novels at this point, and I will have 17 wrapped up pretty shortly here. And so I got into comics kind of like as I was doing that. And so I hooked up with a lot of artists, like, they'd see my work and they're like, "Oh, I'll work with you." This one I just did was by a guy named Jesse White. He's an awesome guy too. He's definitely on the team, I'd say ethically and all that. And that's who I'm trying to work with now. I'm trying to make sure I hire Christian and conservative artists to work with me, because again, like they're in the same struggle as we are, where you just can't get a job in publishing at all these days unless you're trying to promote some Black transsexual lesbian something or other, and make that your deal. So it's really it.
Yeah, that's the only
I'm not joking.
way.
It's not a joke.
No, it's not a joke. I'm laughing because it's so darn true. It's just you literally can't. And who was I listening to? James Lindsay was on Michael O'Fallon's Sovereign Nations. I don't know if you've seen any of his stuff, but he was giving a lecture at a Sovereign Nations pre-convention convention. And he had asked the question, he says, you have person X who happens to be this minority, and you have person Y who happens to be this white person. And person X is actually on paper less qualified than person Y is. Which one are you going to hire? And of course, everybody, thinking the way James, who James Lindsay is, of course, thinking the way James Lindsay operates is going, oh, well, we should probably, based on culture, you should probably hire person X. And James is like, oh, yeah, that's because you're a racist.
Oh, without blinking. Yes.
Without blinking at all. And because you're hiring person X, even though they're not qualified, because you think that you as a white person needs to hire this less qualified Black person because they're never going to make it unless you hire them.
Yes. It's
but
crazy.
If you don't hire them,
and honestly,
you're hiring them because you're not hiring them because you're a racist. He says, do you see you can't win? And that's what all of this is. Anybody that's got your views, my views, whatever, who's trying to break into an industry can't do it. You can't do it. You have to be independent. You have to have an independent way of doing that, which is now brings me to your next project. Is you're doing some crowdfunding, if I understand correctly, for your next big venture.
Yes. This isn't a big venture. This is kind of like an in-betweener. I'm very prolific.
It's bigger than anything I've done. So.
But I'm very prolific is what it comes down to. I'm not the type of guy to just do one book and just try to rest on that. I really like our old culture. I really believe in making America great again. And I think our culture was really best between the 30s and the 50s. And if you look at the writing and all that, then really the stuff that stuck was from a lot of the pulp writers like Robert E. Howard, who did Conan, and H.P. Lovecraft. And those guys they were just machines. They worked their tails off. They cranked out story after story after story over and over and made it that way. And I really like that work ethic. I like that aesthetic. And so that's what I'm aiming for and what I do. So you'll look at me and I'll have this. And if you watch this video in a month, I'll have a different comic book coming out at that point. And that's the goal here. But my current one is called A High School Girl in the Crusades. And again, it's another Crusader theme thing. I'm actually doing a parody of my own book because I'm a madman, as they say. But I like to make myself laugh and I like to have fun. I figure if I'm having fun, everybody else is having fun. And so I flipped the script on my.
And if they're not,
Crusader
you can
book.
have fun at their expense.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, if people are mad and canceling you, I mean, the best way to counter it is just to laugh. They can't handle that.
Or take them on head on. Even if you're not laughing at them, just take them out and call them on their
all
crap.
The above.
Yeah.
But if you can't laugh at yourself, you can't really be having fun all the way around is the way I see it. So we did a very like traditional old school style comic with my last one, which is called Deus Vult, with a strong male lead who's a good Catholic crusader doing his thing. So I'm like, okay, so we'll flip the script and we'll do a manga style to do an Eastern style thing and have it a high school girl from Tokyo gets thrown into the Crusades and see what happens. So it's the complete opposite, but it's still got the same value structure in there. Still got the same hero's journey. Still got the same like wonderful storytelling that I hope everybody will trust me on. But it's just got the completely flipped aesthetic, and so that's what I'm trying to do.
So does it read like
a million ideas?
Does it read like a? I'm going to say it wrong because I'm
manga.
Does it read in the same way? So like you have to like start at the back and work your way, or is it?
No, that's the one thing I didn't do.
So it's traditional Western style reading, only done in the same art form as manga.
In that style, yeah. I didn't want to go the other way because I speak English. I don't speak Japanese, so that makes no sense to me to do it the other way around. But yes, we did that. It's a fun story. It's good for all ages. I try to keep everything clean as best I can these days because, again, we just got to be a counterweight to the degenerate culture out there. So that's up on Indiegogo right now if you want to check it out. Again, it's called The High School Girl in the Crusades. And yeah, we're doing pretty well. So it's been a good start for a few days.
Down here in the scroll, I'm all high techy.
Yes.
I have you in my scroll. You guys have got to check this stuff out. I was there again, his stream. There, some of you may not be entertained. Some of my more uptight, buttoned up collar type friends might not be as entertained as I was, but I was incredibly entertained, and not just because he promoted the channel. I was entertained before that, and then I got really excited.
We try to just have a ton of fun. So the streams might not be for everybody. I do 5-minute videos that are more on serious topics, about like very topical, that are just like, for the person on the go. And again, if you're kind of like, I try to do something for everybody. So I've got my books, I've got my comic books. I kind of am very prolific and all over the map in what I do to do different tones to cater towards you. No matter like whether you're more serious and more philosophical. I have it's a novel called Justified, and I think you'd really like that. And if you're more like just like lighthearted, wanting something like this that's kind of crazy and wacky, A High School Girl in the Crusades is for you. So I try to make sure everybody is covered because I want everybody to be my customer and my friend at the end of the day.
And for those of my followers and fans here on YouTube and Rumble and wherever else this may show up, for those of you that can't read, they have nice pictures. So
they do have good pictures. Yes,
good pictures. So at the end of the day, you're doing what you're doing because you love what you're doing. There's no,
Correct.
it's not just a money making thing. You love what you're doing, and you're actually kind of, for lack of better terminology, you're living the American dream. You're also like fighting the quintessential American fight right now, but you're living the American dream. You're being entrepreneurial. You're funding this. Yes. You're finding investors. You're finding backers. You're funding this yourself to some degree because you love it and you want to do something.
Yeah. I mean, the goal is obviously to support my family and everything, but, you know, I was doing this, you know, on an amateur level for several years and, you know, struggling and not making money at it for a long time, just like everybody else when you do things. I firmly believe in that. Like, you got to spend 10,000 hours on a craft to be good at it and to actually gain your like sort of professional level at it. And I've really attempted to do that by, again, like I said, I've written 17 novels. I think this is my 36th comic issue. So, you know, we're not just some amateur guy out there doing it as his first time and then, you know, making a political thing out of it. No, we're really just trying to make the best books we can over and over and over again, provide a better quality than the mainstream's doing right now. And I think we're succeeding at that.
And you're careful in not allowing you don't avoid the political commentary in the sense of you're not keeping it completely out of your work, but you're not putting it in there so heavy-handed as you have to stop mid-panel.
Right. And be like, did I really read this? Yeah.
Yeah. What? Why does that character look like Hitler?
I know. Yeah. No, it's why does it? It's really disappointing when I see that, and I want everybody to be able to read my books, whether they're on the left or not. I think they should enjoy this book regardless. Nothing was more disappointing to me. I had a big independent artist I followed for a long time, and he had great books. They were really cool and creative. I thought he was doing really interesting things with the genre. And I was reading a book. It was about a month and a half ago, and I get to it, and it's about this like weird box that like has evil spirits in it and all that, which is cool. It's fun, and it's getting transferred around. And at the end of it, the weird box opens, and it's got a panel where it shows Hitler utilizing it, and then Trump utilizing it, and I'm just like, ugh, you really had to throw that in there. Like, I mean, like I just had to sit here, and you had to literally. Think about this. The guy's not even in power at this point. This is 2021 when this came out. So you had to throw Trump in there as literally Hitler, and the dude's not even in office. He's just in Florida somewhere doing whatever he's doing. Like, really? I mean, that's so tacky. It's irrelevant. It's ham-fisted. Even if I was on his side, it would just be kind of on the cringe side. And that I'm not.
Just like, dude, did you just seriously?
Yeah. I don't want to read it, and I don't want to. Now that I've seen that in his work, it's like I can't see anything else, and it's really sad, and it does taint the art. So I don't want to make art that's going to be culturally irrelevant for like some stand I'm taking today. It's just it never works out. You never create anything lasting that way.
I think there's a fine line sometimes too. In how do I want to say this? So I'm working on it. I'm a writer, and much like you, everything from articles and essays to poetry and some fiction, and nothing like you at all. I'm not comparing myself to you.
No worries, my friend. Yeah.
But I'm working on a project that kind of stemmed from a dream that I had, and it is very political. But it's a dystopian. It's a dystopian view from a conservative or more of a constitutional perspective. And there are parts where I'm like, is that too ham-fisted? Is that too deep? And I'm like, to some degree, it's almost like you almost have to put that in there for some of that. But it's the thing that bothers me is what you had just said, which is like this. It's almost like stopping midstream and not doing a course correction, but stopping and looking at your audience and saying, if you don't agree with me, you're that person. And that's almost what it sounds like it is.
And I think that's insulting to the intelligence of the audience, Yeah. If you have I'm just thinking about how this guy could have like done something different. And like, the problem is like when you're calling a like current political figure in culture evil, which is in essence what he does. It's just that, I mean, one, it doesn't last like unless Trump actually did go on to like make concentration camps of people, he didn't do that. So that's kind of gone. So it just doesn't make sense on that level. If you had a specific issue though, like an issue rather than targeting a person in politics, or whatever, it could be done. Like, I mean, if you really are opposed to, I don't know, like the, let's go with the immigrants issue. Like Australia right now, this Novak Djokovic thing, when he went down there, the tennis player, they found that like there's people who have been attempting to immigrate to Australia, who have been just caught in this like prison camp basically, and have been there for 9+ years without a trial, without anything. Well, there are basic level human rights we can talk about with that. And, it doesn't even necessarily have to make a commentary on current immigration policy.
Right.
They have a duty really as Australia and as any country to either let him in at some point or send him back at some point. And keeping him there, keeping him without a trial, keeping him being fed 2 meals or less a day in this little dingy room is inhumane, and it's not right to do. And you can make a story around an experience like that and not have it target the Prime Minister of Australia or whatever and call him Hitler. That's kind of where the line lies, I think, in my opinion.
This is going to sound really strange, but I think sometimes that what happens in our current culture is that we sometimes lionize and treat with respect genuine evil individuals from our history, from our past, more so than we do just your normal political figures or your average Joe gets treated. So you look at Kyle Rittenhouse and what the media did to him and what they painted him out to be, and what, even what Joe Biden did by lumping him in with some pretty people you and I would both consider to be like, no, those people are radical. But yet when you watch a documentary about people from the past, without even putting a spin on, the person who made the documentary or is telling the story, oftentimes they treat genuine evil with far more respect than just your average person or political figure is treated today.
Oh, for sure.
It's bizarre. I think that, it's almost like they tread lightly on the grave of Hitler, if he's even dead. But they tread very lightly on the grave of Hitler, and while they will label somebody else a Nazi or label somebody else Hitler today, they wouldn't use that same language to describe someone like Hitler or Mussolini or Stalin or Lenin, and when they should. And it's been very hard for me to process, because I'm looking at it like seeing average people, friends of mine, being labeled like that and attacked like that. I just did a breaking story last week about a guy here in Minnesota who was diagnosed with the COOF at the end of October, and in November, right away at the beginning of November, he went on a respirator, and he's been on a respirator ever since. Well, last week, the hospital administration, Mercy Hospital in Coon Rapids, Minnesota, approached his wife, strangely enough, a few days after his insurance ran out, and told her that they were going to take him off the respirator because he was never going to recover, and it was time for her to let him go. And she had to go and get a temporary restraining order from a judge so that they wouldn't kill this man, her husband.
Wow.
And the people came out of the woodwork, and this is where I'm going with this. They came out of the woodwork, and karma's a bitch. He should have got vaccinated. The hospital administrator said to her, if Scott would have just gotten vaccinated, this would have been avoidable. Now, did they call him Hitler? No, but the way they're attacking him in a way that they would never attack somebody from history, from the past. And now there are people literally praying for him to die so that they can be right, so that they can show
unbelievable
that he did this to himself and he's putting other people at risk. And it says so much about our culture. And quite frankly, there are people on our end of the spectrum who are almost as bad, because they'll say things like, well, if the president would just kick off, things would be different. Or if, and I'm like, that's not the answer to what's going on in our culture and our society today. There's there needs to be some sort of understanding where we can come at these things from an intellectual and from a place of reasoning, and even in our philosophical and socio-cultural differences, and approach these conversationally with the intent of understanding that we are here to change somebody's mind without attacking them for who they are in their core by labeling them as evil or as monsters. And that's not to say that some of these people aren't evil. And that's what encouraged me about listening to you talk about your books, is that your politics are there, your views are there, your culture is there, but you're not ham-fisted, and like every single one of the antagonist is a caricature of the person that you hate today.
Right.
And that's got to take a lot of effort.
It does. You have to be kind of conscious of things. You have to be conscious, I would say, like, because if you look at a lot of movies and books and comics these days, not only did they do it with specific people like that, but they also do it with like specific races. They always want the bad guy to be a corporate white guy, right? And, for an example, or a religious zealot, right? And I try not to characterize my characters and especially my villains as a certain demographic. Like the villain, I try to make it a real, like I try to like conceive of a real villain, like, and try to figure it out. So it's not a caricature like that. And that's the hardest part of probably that the storytelling in general.
Is it, and you've been busy today, so I won't keep you much longer.
No problem.
Is it, do you think is it impossible today, no matter where you're at on the spectrum, is it impossible in art?
Yes.
In what you do as art, whether it's your YouTube channel or your books and your graphic novels and your comics, it's almost impossible to separate, I think, your political, socio-cultural views from your artwork, from what you're doing, in a way that was never true before.
Yeah, and it's because of the internet. Because like you can just load up somebody's Twitter immediately, and then you see their frame of reference, and you then look at everything through that frame of reference. That was never able to be done before. I've actually seen like one of my favorite writers back in the day was J. Michael Straczynski, and he in the 90s, he's gone off the rails since then, of course, as most Hollywood has. But he would write episodes of Babylon 5, and he'd have characters that like you could tell like that's kind of a more conservative character, and yet it's a good character and he's sympathetic. It's just who that character is. And he really didn't define people in that show based on their identities. Of course, once 2012 happened or so, everybody's only defined up based on their identities. And once you get to that point, everything has to be polarizing at that point. And you can't separate that anymore. So they've made that the rules of things. And so I've kind of like embraced it almost and been like, okay, fine. I'll just do that on my side and do what I can. I'm going to try to keep storytelling going as best I can. But those are the rules now. It's like you almost have to be on one side or the other. And if you're apolitical, even at this point, they know that you're a right-wing Nazi, So no matter what, you can't win. And it's frustrating as an artist because I definitely would like to, I don't know, just be a little more free to do what I want, I guess. But I've got to play by the rules everybody else has already set in a lot of ways.
So your stuff is family friendly, at least in the respect of it. Like there's not a lot of like weird Conan level orgy scenes or anything like that.
No, I mean, so we did do a Franz Frazetta style cover on the first Deus Vult, but the new cover that's available now is I got a lot of commentary on that. I'll show it on this. Is it okay if I show it on the screen?
Yeah, it's fine. I curse on my videos sometimes. So,
but the artist, he did an oil painting of this, and this was okay. a little too sexy for some of my audience. But a lot of the pulp stuff from the 50s and 60s again looked like this. Yeah, that's what we were trying to go
every
for.
Single Conan cover is some hat,
every Conan
clad woman. either holding a sword or something else.
Yeah. So we went a little less risque with the new cover. That's the only one I could think of that really has that. I do have one novel that does reference sex in it. It's called The Stars Entwined. And that's my only novel that does that on that level too. The other ones are clean on that level. So I'm moving more towards that direction, but like The Stars Entwined, it mattered to the plot. And if you do read that novel, you'll see it's actually like there's a wholesome message through the plot, even though that happened. It's hard to explain without spoiling.
You don't have to justify it. It's perfectly fine.
No, I do. I want to justify that my story choices have meaning and importance to it.
Yeah,
but
it's just not like they just stop and have sex in the middle of for no reason.
No, we're not.
There's something going on.
We're not hippie boomers just doing it in the road, So
yeah,
which
does not happen in Minnesota in January, by the way. So,
but yeah, no, I tried to do that, but I keep things as PG to PG-13 as I can. Sometimes the violence gets a little heavy, but that's about it. Yeah,
it's the world. So if somebody wants to buy any of your stuff, is there a place for them to go directly to you to do that?
Yeah, so a lot of my books are on my website, delarroz.com. That's DELARROZ.com. That's my name. And there's a shop button.
You will send me a link, friends and family.
Sure.
You will send me a link so that I can actually put that in the description of the video.
A lot of them are on. I've got everything up on Amazon also to make that easy. And I've got my my Indiegogo campaign, which those are important because they help me fund the art for this stuff.
Yep.
And comic art is extremely expensive. If you guys don't know that, so it's a grind, and we definitely push that as we're doing things. And definitely thank you so much, people who are backers of that. You guys have come in every single time. Every book I've made has been profitable, and I'm just super blessed by that. And I appreciate the fans and readers so much. You guys are the best.
And if people want to tune into your commentary, even though I've got it in the banner down below, people want to tune into your commentary, they can find you on YouTube and maybe even Rumble now.
I'm on Odyssey at the moment as a mirror for that. But if Rumble actually makes money, like you were telling me before, I will check that out. Yeah,
I've made almost $5 in the last week.
Wow,
off of 141 subscribers.
Not too bad.
Yeah, that's
I'll check that out.
Nothing near your level of monetization.
Odyssey doesn't pay, so I don't like that mirror so much. But I have it as a backup because, like, I figure it's a matter of time before I get deplatformed.
Yeah. Absolutely. So they can check you on YouTube. They can check you out on Odyssey. They can find you at your website, which we will have the link to. Closing thought before I do my close. One thing that you would want people that are of our perspective to take away from what you do and what you've experienced in the last few years.
My big takeaway is fight. Don't be scared. Their entire tactics are to try to make you feel alone and isolated and make you feel like there's so much pressure that there's no way you can handle it. But it's not true. There's a big community of us out here now. There's a lot of us who have gotten canceled and been through this. We can help guide you through it. We'll give you access to our platforms so you can come and tell your side of the story. It's out there, and we are building a new ecosystem. It's just at the start of things. If you look the way culture and the pendulum has swung, if you go back to the 30s and 40s, they used to arrest communists and actually put them and blacklist them from everything. And that was a good thing in hindsight. We should go back to that.
I did a whole series on McCarthyism and how McCarthy was right.
He was 100% right. The Bible thumpers, the church lady who was screaming Satan in the 70s and 80s, she was 100% right too. And so it's not that far away, but you do need people to actually build the building blocks, get it going there, and start the engine again. And to resist this, not to be neutral, but to actively resist this. Yep. So I encourage everybody to actively resist and let's build this together. It's a lot of fun. We'll win because we're having more fun than them.
Okay, guys, you've heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Am I allowed? Can I say that from the horse's mouth? There's nothing culturally inappropriate about that, is there?
I hope there's nothing yet. Maybe tomorrow that'll be insensitive to whatever gender.
So, or identity. I'm transhumanism. Wait, no, transspeciesism. I just got canceled. You guys have heard it from Jon. Like, and he is the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction today. So like he's an authority. So you have to listen to him. So no, go check out his stuff. The links, I will provide all the links in the appropriate places, and check out his work. I'm going to try and get my hands on his stuff if I can. I'll have to sell a couple of bags of coffee, but I think we'll get there. Check out his stuff. Listen to him, follow him. And unlike him, I don't do 5-minute videos. I'm just too much of an airbag to only do 5 minutes. But check out his stuff. Listen to what he has to say. I got turned on to what he was talking about, listening to him on Carter and Carey show on Unsafe Space. So I mean, and he's right. There is a community out there for you. There is a place for you, and now's the time for all of us, no matter where we're at in this fight, to stop being reactionary and take the bull by the horns and really say, no, you want to cancel me? I'll fight you. It might get nasty and not literally bloody, but it could turn in a long drawn out bloody fight, but I'm going to fight you. I'm not going down without a fight. They back down from that. And the harder you fight back, the more likely they are to cave in. You may not get everything you want out of the deal, but you're going to get something. And you do enough philosophical damage to them, they run away. They don't like it, and because they can't stand their ground, because most of them don't know what they believe in the first place. So check out Jon, check out his streams, check out his work, and until next time, like I say all the time, Sic Semper Tyrannis.